Hey guys, how you doing? In this video, we're gonna make some steak fajitas using this inside round roast that I picked up from the store. It's a pretty inexpensive and tough cut, but we're going to soften it up by brining it for a few hours. Then we're going to thinly slice it and we'll throw it onto the Weber kettle and then we'll put it in some tasty fajitas, so stay tuned. All right, so first I'm going to just open this package here. Take this out. As you can see, it's pretty lean meat, inside round. It's labeled as a marinating steak, so clearly they think you're gonna prep it in some way, otherwise it's gonna be pretty tough if you just threw it on the grill right away. So we'll take that out. And we'll put some kosher salt on it. I'm gonna be pretty liberal here because I know that I'll be chopping it up afterwards and frying it up, so we can put quite a bit of salt on the outside. And I like kosher salt because you can control the amount of salt a lot easier than with table salt or other fine-grained salt, such as sea salt. It's a lot easier to see how much salt you're putting on the meat, and also it's a lot harder to screw it up and to over-salt it. Flip that guy over, and we'll put some salt on the other side. There we go. Now I'm going to leave this out for about 2 or 3 hours, and it's pretty cold right now, so it's going to come up to room temperature, and the salt is going to penetrate into the meat. It's going to make it a lot more tender. I'm not too worried about food safety because it's already pretty cold. It needs to come up to temperature, and all this salt is going to protect it too. So we'll check back in about 2 or 3 hours.
While we're waiting for the steak to brine, I'm going to get this chimney starter started. So I've filled it with some paper towel on the bottom of the chimney starter, and I put some charcoal briquettes into it about 3/4 of the way full. Now I'm just lighting the paper towel with a torch lighter, and we'll just let that sit for about 15 minutes to get up to temperature. While those coals are being lit, I am taking the steak out and I'm going to carve it up. I'm going to cut it into really thin slices. And it's very important when you're slicing that you slice against the grain. So that means perpendicular to the way that the fibers in the meat are running, so that when you bite into it, you don't get really stringy tissues that are running the full length of the strip that you're cutting. You just bite into it and it comes apart really easily because all the individual meat fibers are sort of aligned upwards instead of lengthways. There's no real method to how long the strips of meat should be. This is a pretty thin steak. It's not like a skirt steak that you usually use for fajitas that's pretty long and you'd get really long strips. So I'm just trying to cut the strips as long as possible, but I'm gonna end up with some smaller ones and probably a few chunks of meat, which is fine. I'll grill them up anyways, and it'll all come out fine. After the steak is cut into strips, I'm going to set them aside, and it's time to put the coals into the Weber kettle. So I'm just going to take what's in my chimney starter, I'm going to dump them into the Weber kettle, and then I'm going to just maneuver them onto one side of the Weber kettle to make a hot spot, and I'll have the cold spot for cooking on the other side. And what I'm going to do is do all the major cooking of all the veggies and the steak on the hot side, and then I'll move it over to the cold side when I'm cooking the other half. I went ahead and chopped up a bunch of veggies ahead of time. I did 1 full jalapeno, 2 or 3 bell peppers of different colors, and I'm going to put it into a little barbecue pan or basket that I had handy that I've been using for grilling in the past, and I'm going to dump the veggies in there. And then I'm going to coat them with just some basic taco seasoning. You can use whatever your favorite Tex-Mex seasoning is. I just have this handy, so I'm going to toss it on there. I'm going to throw a little bit of lime juice on just so that the seasoning can adhere to the veggies. And then I'm going to cook it until it's pretty tender. All right, these veggies are looking pretty good. So I'm going to add some black beans into the mix, and then I'll cook it over the hot side for just a little bit longer just to get some heat onto those beans. And then I'm going to move it to the cold side of the Weber kettle just to finish off the cooking process for the veggies. I don't want to get them too soggy and soft. I want them to have a little bit of crunch to them. So I'll move them to the side, and then I'll start laying on my strips of steak. The steak is going to cook really fast, so As you can see here, I'm just laying it onto the Weber Kettle grill, being careful that it doesn't slip through the grate. And by the time I'm pretty much done laying them down, I actually have to go back to the first one I set down and then flip that one over again and sort of start the process of flipping it again, because that's how fast it's going to cook. And I still want to keep it a little bit medium rare. I don't want it well done because it's going to overcook the steak and it's going to be way too tough. If you have a lot of steak strips, it's a really good idea to cook them in batches so that you're not overcrowding the grill. You only have one hot side, so there's not a lot of real estate to put these strips on. And also you don't want to crowd them. You want some space in between them so that the heat can get evenly distributed. Okay, so I've taken everything off the grill and I've got all my ingredients lined up that I'm going to put in my fajitas. So the first layer that I'm going to put down are my veggies and beans. And then I'm going to do a really thin layer of white rice. And then I will lay down a bunch of strips of the steak. And I'm going to sprinkle some cheddar cheese. You can use any type of cheese, but I like the sharp taste of this old cheddar. So I'm going to put that on and I'm going to let that melt a little bit on the hot steak. The next thing I'm going to do is add all of my fixins. So I'm going to add some salsa on there. I'm going to add some sour cream. And then I'm going to fold it over into a sort of quesadilla style, because it's kind of hard to eat all this stuff without folding it in a way that you can sort of get your hands around it like a burrito or a quesadilla. So I'll fold it over onto itself, and then I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces just to make it easy for eating and for serving. And that's it. These fajitas were really fun to make. If you have a family or if you've got a lot of people to feed, it's really fun to put all the fixins and the ingredients and the meat and the veggies and beans and rice around the table and just let people just stack it up onto their tortillas however they like it. Some people like to make burritos. Some people like to make quesadillas, and everyone's fajita sort of looks a little different. So it's a lot of fun to eat, and it's really good to eat, and it's a lot of fun to cook on the Weber Kettle. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please hit that subscribe button. All right, guys, thanks a lot. See you later.